Welcome to the Podcasting Mentor Podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are ready to stop hiding and start showing up on the right stages without the burnout. I'm Candace Dudley, podcast guesting strategist, and your go-to for turning interviews into your favorite marketing and networking tool. And guess what? My podcast guesting accelerator is now enrolling for summer. Yep, this is your sign to finally get off the sidelines and into the spotlight. Like my client, Kelly, who landed 8 guest spots in a single week after we worked together. She called it a no-brainer and said she'd 1000% do it again. That's the power of intentional guesting, and that's exactly what I'll help you do. Let's get brave, let's get strategic, and let's get you heard. Head to the show notes for more details on my podcast guesting accelerator. Okay, welcome back to another coaching episode. I have Laura on. She is a social media manager who is thinking about dabbling in podcast guesting as a way to gain more visibility. I just want to welcome you to the show and thank you for spending time with me and letting me kind of pick your brain and help map out and strategize a plan to start podcast guesting. So why don't you start with just who you are and who do you help?
Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Laura and I work as a social media manager, and I also do paid ads for my clients. I help mostly other online entrepreneurs gain more visibility online. I think most of us know how important it is to be visible on social media, but sometimes it can just feel like a second full-time job. So I do a lot of management for my clients and make it easier for them, give them some time back so they can focus on the things they really love in their business.
Oh my gosh, that makes sense to me because one of the reasons I podcast and podcast guest is because social media does feel daunting to me and heavy and like sometimes a time suck. So I love that you help people with that. I think it's obviously needed. I wonder, what do you think is the number one sort of question or problem your clients come to you with?
The major problems they have is time. They know how important it is to be visible, but they just feel like they don't have the time that it requires to get the result they want. They already have really good offers and services, but they just are struggling to get enough eyes on them.
And is there something that comes to mind about people saying like, oh, I've never thought of that take, or something that you have a different take on or perspective than maybe other social media managers?
I have 2. The first one is a lot of times we forget that we're talking to other human beings. It's so easy to get stuck and just wanting more followers and wanting more likes. And we forget that there's a human being behind all of those interactions. Many times we also take advice as business owners that's more intended for content creators. And I mean, content creators should have big platforms. They should focus on getting more followers. But we as business owners, I think our major focus should be on gaining that visibility and then driving that visibility to our other paid offers. And then the second one I'll share is, which maybe is funny coming from someone that works in social media, but it's a reminder that it's a rented space. We don't own our accounts and we don't own our followers, and they can be taken away from us without much warning. And we have very little say in that. I always tell my clients that it's really important to use social media because it's such a great place to be visible, but it's also important to take the traffic and drive it to somewhere where we own it, like a website or an email list, because we don't want to end up in a situation where an account gets shut down and it will also shut down that person's business. That would be terrible.
I love that you add that. I do think that is super different and not something that I've seen many people in your field being really conscious of, but I do know people that that's happened to, and there's no warning when your account gets locked or shut down and you never know if you're going to get it back. I do love that you have that perspective to, yes, use it as this amazing tool, but then also, hey, be mindful of like what it truly is and that you don't own that space. Is there something, because I don't know too much more about you than what we've just chatted about, is there something in your background, your perspective, your experience that's also maybe different than others that you can share?
From what I see, I think there's people that work with organic social media or paid. It's like one or the other. But I like to do both, and I like to combine both for my clients as well, because they have very, very different purposes. And I think we get the best results when we combine the two of them together.
That makes a lot of sense. If you had to guest on a podcast tomorrow, you couldn't prep, you couldn't plan anything, what comes to mind that you're like, this would be the topic, I could talk about this, I could just make it happen with no notice?
What comes to mind, it's 2 topics. So I would either talk about how to combine organic and paid and why there's such a good combination, or I would go back to my corporate experience. I worked in corporate for nearly a decade with marketing. I was a Fortune 200 company before I left. And what I see is a lot of business owners, we tend to play really small because I see what a lot of these corporations do. These are strategies and ways of working that small business owners could implement with their marketing as well. And I think we could see much, much better results. So those are the two things that come to mind.
I love that. So something that comes to mind about speaking topics, if we kind of transition into that area, I think it's really helpful as a podcast host to think about our speaking topics in episode titles, because then you can use those and post on social media, post on threads. And as a host is scrolling, they can see and identify really quickly if it's a yes right away and that you would fit their show. It makes it easy to say yes. And so if we think about that, I'm thinking of like a title maybe from corporate Fortune 200 to small business owner. How to play big when you're small, or how to play big when you're a small business, something like that, that shows that unique experience that, hey, I have lived and worked at these high levels and have this great knowledge, but also I'm going to take that big knowledge and big experience and bring it to you as a small business owner, something like that. Does that resonate?
Yeah, I love that title.
And then I do love your organic and paid part. So something with that. Does something come to mind of what we could title something for organic and paid? Combining organic and paid marketing, the secrets. I'm coming up with something cheesy. The secret sauce to your business. I don't like that, but something like that where it is clear, it is specific.
I like the first one. It was so catchy. And now I feel like
I know.
it's hard to come up with a second one that's as good.
I know. I like to do titles as like a little bit, and then I like a semicolon, and then another tagline. I think it can help you give specifics. Thinking about your offers. A lot of people have a free resource, a paid offer. Thinking about maybe if you have more than one of those types of things, do you have one that would make sense for your dream client potential signing? Talk to me a little bit about, do you have free offers? Do you have paid offers that would fit any of these topics really well, or that you'd be excited about?
So for the paid offers, it would be my social media management, and that's like a monthly retainer based. And then I have the same offer for paid ads. I have some clients that do one or the other, and then I have a few clients that also combine the two together.
Okay.
So I think that's for paid. And for free, I have two so far. One is 50 Instagram hooks to grab attention. And I think those are really good just to make it a bit easier to get that visibility online. And the other one is proven Canva templates for ads, which have been really, really popular. People keep downloading them like crazy. So I feel like they're definitely filling a need.
Yes. So knowing that, we should definitely have a topic that goes with that, because then it leads into your paid container offer as well, knowing that that's a hot ticket right now. And I agree. I hear people are thinking about ads and things, ways to make one social media post, boost it or pay for it that is going to work for them in the background. So thinking about that, is there a title that could come to mind? Because if we use the offers to think of speaking topics, then when we're adding value or being questioned about our expertise, that's the topic. So you're going to be teaching to that or speaking to that, and it becomes really natural and not like a sales pitch, but it's just natural that you're sharing value. And you can also say, and go ahead and go download this. It's going to get you a great quick win. People are loving it, and it goes right with this conversation. So it makes sense that, at the end of an episode, when a host says, tell us where we can follow along, or, what's coming next, that's when I suggest saying it's totally appropriate to be like, if you love this conversation, you want to dive into paid ads, go download my templates. They're free. People are loving them. It's going to really work for you. And it's a great place to get you started so that you aren't starting from scratch. So thinking about that, do you have any ideas that come to mind of topics?
I'm thinking for the 50 hooks one, I don't know if it could be something like how to actually be visible on Instagram in 2025.
Are you an entrepreneur looking to start or grow your business while feeling supported and seen every step of the way? Join the Aligned Business Collective, the monthly membership I co-host with Andrea Hansen and Brittany Williams, designed for entrepreneurs like you. This is your space to connect, learn, and build a business that truly works for you, while we hold you accountable with our weekly calls and on-demand coaching. Head to the link in the show notes to learn more and join today.
or maybe could be something like, I guess this could work for either, what other social media managers don't want you to know.
I love that second one because it's kind of juicy and it's kind of like letting you know, like, I'm not going to gatekeep. I'm going to give the value. I'm going to really lay it out there. It probably isn't going to be advice that you hear mainstream all the time. A new, fresh take that other people aren't saying. That would be a catchy title. So, like, what other social media managers don't want you to know about?
I don't know, about maybe like getting more followers, selling out your offers.
Yeah, visibility, growth. About what they don't want you to know about selling out your offers on social media.
I think that'd be nice.
How do you feel about that kind of brainstorm? We got like maybe 4 possible topics. You feel like those you could run with and speak on, and they make sense with your offers?
Definitely, I think they're very catchy. And I love how he asked, like, what are my offers? So we can find like a
Yes.
topic that is both something that I'm very excited to talk about, but then also connects to my offers.
Yes.
That's really great.
Yes, because I look at podcast guesting as, yes, I'm going to get on, I'm going to give you value. If someone just listened to my show or the episode I did on somebody else's show, they could take the information and run with it. But then there's always going to be people that are like, I don't want to run with it myself. I want help, or I want someone to do it for me. And that's where I think we have to just say, I also am a business. I also offer this, or give the downloadable, that free thing, or give a next step. We call it call to action in the social media world or whatever, but giving that next step, because if you go on a show and you don't mention that you're a business, you don't mention that, you know, you have clients, or here's where you can come join me, then it's just a great episode, add a lot of value, but you don't get them into like your neck of the woods, like into your space. And the ones that want that, we want to let them come over. So I think that that's totally appropriate to have planned. And when we pair the speaking topic with that, it becomes super natural that that just gets brought up organically throughout your conversation with the host. What about podcast guesting in general, or speaking when you get on a show, or anything about it? Do you have other questions that I can answer?
My question is how to find the right podcast, like to find a good match with like a host and making sure we have similar target audience. Yeah, just making myself visible to them. I think that's my first question.
Absolutely. That's super common to wonder. Honestly, when you go to Apple or Spotify and you start searching keywords or things, you're going to just get like big name podcasts, big production companies. So it can kind of feel like I just can't find them. So I turn to Threads right now. That's where I feel like the hotspot is. It's really easy to type in the search bar. I'll use words like podcast threads, podcasters, podcast guests, podcast guesting, and just start scrolling there and engaging in that. But also just post these topics onto your Threads account and say, hey, I'm looking to guest on podcasts this year. Here's 3 or 4 potential episodes that I know I could bring tons of value to your listeners. Let me know if you want to book me for your show. So that can be just a really easy way to get started, but it is something that I help my clients with and find. Once you can find a smaller size show or something that would be a better fit, that's where like the breadcrumb trail kind of opens up. Because like, let's say you resonated with me. So you go to my podcast and you listen to some of my episodes and you're like, yeah, I'm jiving with Candace. So I have a tracker for this I can send you, but I would grab all the contact information that you could find for my show and me and the host, and I'd plug that all into my Google Doc. And then I would look through my guest episodes because I had other podcast hosts on my show. So now you could say, because if you drive with me, it's likely you might drive with my guests. So maybe you pick somebody and you're like, oh, they have a podcast. They were on Candace's show. You hop over to theirs. Same type of thing. Then they probably had another podcast host or multiples that are on their show. You might drive. So once you get going, it becomes easier, but it is kind of the time consuming part, because I definitely think it's worth, and I tell my clients this, like, you need to listen to some of the show and the intro, some episodes, because otherwise it's really icky to just message someone and be like, hey, I think I'd be a good fit for your show, but I haven't listened to it. I don't know anything about it. So you want to kind of do your homework in that regard, but it doesn't have to take you like a super long time. You don't have to listen to like every single episode they've ever made. You're just checking for that alignment. And a lot of times you can listen to their introduction. You can go read the description of their show. That's going to give you like the overview of like, what are they about? What are their values? What's their messaging? If you do that, it can be such a powerful tool, because now it's like a really warm audience that you're speaking in front of. And then usually your connection, like networking with that host, becomes such a great vibe and a really awesome connection. So I always say too, like, don't sleep on staying connected with that host, because that's where I've seen the collaborations, the referrals, and things like that. And the referrals usually come when you have such a specific thing you're talking about on their show. And that doesn't mean you don't do other things in your business, but when you get on and you do one episode where it's like, boom, this topic, now when anyone comes to them and asks about that topic, they are going to think of you top of mind because you weren't on doing like a generalist type thing. They're like, boom, paid ads. I'm sending them to Laura, keeping those connections after you've guested. Long answer, but it's kind of like a breadcrumb trail. I feel like once you start going, you could ask those hosts, do you have any other hosts that you feel like would be a good fit for me that I could potentially reach out to and maybe, let them know that I guested on your show and kind of drop their name because that helps too. We get a lot of cold pitches or emails as hosts from copy pasted companies that are just like, ugh, throw it in the spam folder. So anytime you can utilize connections you've already made to make new ones, is really helpful too.
Well, thank you for sharing. That's all very, very valuable. And then I will ask you a follow-up question because you said you get a lot of cold pitches that are terrible and you just kind of get rid of them. If you don't have that connection and someone that can introduce you, what stands out for you in a cold pitch?
One, I would send it as a direct message. If you can find the host's Instagram or some way to message them on social media and not in an email, I just keep hearing from other hosts that they are just sending the emails right to a junk folder. And that's not to say that I've not ever booked myself a guest spot through an email, but what stands out to me with a direct message or an email is one, somehow you have let me know as the host that you have done your homework and you listened to my show. So you mentioned not just, hey, I loved your episode on this. You mentioned something about me or my show that's specific that I'm like, she has listened to more than one episode. She's in there. She gets it. She gets me. And then lead with value because all we want to know as hosts really is what are you going to bring to my show? Because hosts do a lot of work to, produce the episode and build the like and trust with their audience. Guests that come on, it's like vetting them to your audience saying, I trust this person. I like this person. I've checked them out for you. You don't have to check them out. I did it for you. And so you can trust this person. So what kind of value? And that's why I like giving really specific speaking topics because then that's really easy for me to read them as a host to be like, there is value there and that is different. And that's going to give my audience, an edge in their business or something like that. So value, showing you've done your homework and have something, not that we need everything in common because that's unrealistic and we don't even want that because you might as well not guess if you're just like me because I've already probably covered it. But some type of connection, a match in values, a match in our mission will go a really long way in that. Also, it's not inappropriate to follow up. I don't mean to follow up like within 24 hours. That's what usually those companies do too is follows up 24 hours and then 24 hours out, you got by the end of the week, you had 8 emails from them. But like a week later, if you haven't heard, I love to just pop back into their messages and be like, just checking. I know life gets busy. How many times you've looked at a message, think you're going to respond, you don't. And then give them a chance to get off the hook. Like if this isn't a fit right now, I totally get it. I just wanted to quick follow up. But sometimes on threads, with that said, when you start posting and sharing about this, you're going to start seeing content possibly that people are looking for guests and they might list topics. If you fit one of those, comment on there. I have booked shows doing that. In that case, I haven't listened to their episode yet, but they listed something specific and I'm like, that's me. I can talk about that all day. And then you start a message with them. You want to listen to the show ahead of time, but you might start seeing that on threads if you start kind of posting and searching for these things. The algorithm will just like start bringing you more of it. Anything else you can think of?
Yeah, I want to say that that's a ton of value. And I love threads as well. It's such a nice place to just connect with other people. I love everything you said. And also too, I think sending a DM feels more personal rather than sending an email. And here comes in that it's so important to be visible on social media and having a good profile for a variety of reasons.
Yes, the pair of what you and I do, it matches. Like if you send a DM and you haven't posted anything on your social media in the last month, the host is probably going to be like, I don't know, because as a host, what do we want you to do after you've been on the episode? We want you to make sure you share it. And that's funny to me that there are people that get on and then they end up not sharing it, which is wild. So definitely if you're going to, obviously you already know, like if I'm going to be on a podcast episode, I want to share it, right? It's my message. It shows me in this authority, expertise light, and I want to share that. That's what a host wants to know. And if you have a blank social media, we already know like you're probably not going to share it. So I'm not saying you need to have tons of followers because I do not turn people away based on that. If you have 200 followers, but they are like engaged and like your biggest fans and just locked in, that's awesome. That's way better than than 10,000 who are just like there scrolling and hitting the like button, not going to buy or not going to, be invested. So I don't so much care about follower count, but I do care that, yeah, you're active on social media and you're going to share the episode. That's a really good point that you make there.
And I have one more question for you. And you just said that being a guest on a podcast is such a great way to build authority and it's a good way to get visibility. But I think I think a lot of people can relate to this. It's a lot of fear of showing up on podcasts. I've done one podcast before and it took me like 2 years to build up the courage to do that. I think especially for me working with social media where I can like really think through things, I can write and edit and change. But when you're on podcasts, you can get like unexpected questions. And I think there's loads of fear around that. So do you have any advice for how we can handle that?
I totally relate to this. So one is just let yourself be a beginner because your people, the ones that are going to connect with you, and there's enough people for all of us. I always like to remind people, right? They're going to like you and they're going to connect with you and your take on things and your vibe and your style. You can ask the hosts, hey, do you have questions? Even just sample ones that I can just kind of start brainstorming. If that makes you nervous, most of them have things if they don't already send them to you. But it's not inappropriate to say, I just want to do the best job I can on your show. Do you have questions, that I can start thinking about? So if they don't provide that, absolutely okay to ask for that. And you can also ask a host if they edit. I like to edit. I like to comb through things. I want my listeners to get things in as short amount of time as they can. And I want my guest and I to sound good and come off in a good way. So I want both of those things. So I do edit, but some people don't. And so you can check on that. You can ask that so that if you got to keep going or if you can just full stop and be like, oh, can I re-say that? More times than not, they edit in some way. So that helps to know that. From an outside perspective, you listen to like big podcast productions and things like that, and you're like, they're just amazing. She never says, why does she never say, Well, either they have an editor or like me, I'm editing it myself and I'm cutting all of that out. Know that it's like super normal. Like everybody is doing it. If they aren't, it's because someone edited out or somebody made it sound more professional. But you got to start where you are and put the reps in because it's something that you get better at. And the thing with guesting that's so fun to me is once you have done it and you've said your whole spiel, because now you've told your story, you've talked about your business, you'll get done and you'll think of a few things. You're like, I'm going to say that better next time. Or hopefully don't be like judgy to yourself, but you can look at it and just kind of reflect and be like, you know what? I gave too much of my life story. I'm going to shorten that up next time. Because I totally made all these mistakes too, where I shared like every pivot I've ever made in my introduction. And now I've cut half the episode time out. You learn as you go, utilizing people like me or my podcast episodes that have lots of tips on it. That's going to help you feel prepared too. It's so common. There's not a great answer other than putting in the reps, asking the host those types of questions. That's just going to help you feel a little more comfortable to know if you can re-say something or not.
I think there's so much value in your answer. And I love what you said to allow yourself to be a beginner, because I agree. We listen to like high-end podcasts and then we compare ourselves with those guests and we're like, there's no way I will be able to sound like that. And I think maybe that's where a lot of fear comes in. I love what you said about asking to edit as well. I never thought about that. And I feel like if I know someone edits beforehand, that's something that would definitely put me at ease.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's why every guest I have, I'm like, I will edit this. Please know that, because to me, I want to know that. It's a different type of talk. If we're like going straight through, we can't stop. So I always like to try to put my guests at ease for sure. A lot of times it's just a one-woman show. And like you said about social media, it's a person on the other side, right? We're just human too. So we're all making mistakes.
Thank you for sharing that. I love it.
Yes. Okay. Let's wrap this up. Thank you for your time. Thanks for being here. I think you have such great topics. I'm super excited to see you potentially go and guest on shows. So you have to tag me if you do so I can listen to them. Tell everybody, because I know there's people listening that can need help with their social media. So tell everybody, where are you? Where can we find you? Where can we follow along?
Well, thank you so much for having me, first of all, and for coaching me through this. I've learned so much in this episode and I had so much fun being here. So we already talked about my freebies and my paid offers. And so you can come and find them on my Instagram, which is it's Laura Wall. I also spend a lot of time on LinkedIn if you prefer that. And it's the same handle on there. So it's Laura Wall on both places.
Amazing. I'm going to link that all in the show notes. And you rock that outro. You are ready for that part. That was so good. All right, I hope you loved that episode with Laura. She is such a gem. Make sure you go follow her. And if you want to be coached like that and want my help to strategize and plan and prep and come up with speaking topics, just like I just did with Laura, head to the show notes and go book your one-on-one call or get signed up for my podcast guesting accelerator. All right, that's it for today. If this episode gave you a little aha or you're thinking about guesting on podcasts now, I'd love to hear about it. Screenshot the episode, tag me on Instagram @CandiceDudley, and let me know your biggest takeaways. And don't forget to come back next Tuesday for another episode.